Takeaway Chinese, where you can take some Chinese away and experience progress day by day. Takeaway Chinese, we will promise you a difference.
你好，欢迎收听随行汉语 Welcome to Takeaway Chinese. I'm Niu Honglin, and joining me today is Steve Hatherley. Hello, Steve.
你好。
See, you're saying 你好. This is making me happy. This is only our 4th episode, and you're using Chinese to greet me.
好久不见.
That's not true, but 好久不见 to you too. Haven't seen you for a while. 好久不见. I was about to ask you, have you been practicing Chinese when you're not recording the show with me? But apparently you are, and you're picking up sayings and expressions that I didn't share with you in our show.
Yeah, I'm trying to. It's a slow process, of course.
I'm going to ask you, how's the first several weeks and even months here in China? How'd you like it?
I like it very much, yeah. It's a big city in a big country.
Yes.
But I like it. People are very nice. And the struggle, I think, that I've been having so far has just been language-wise. It's something that you can deal with because of, screenshots and translations and things like that. But I will say this, the language challenges are also encouraging or pushing me to try to learn the language quicker. If I lived in a place, for example, I don't know, if you live in a city where English is commonly spoken by everybody, even if it's as a second language, then you wouldn't be as encouraged to learn the language as much as you are if it's not spoken. It's like if you go to Vancouver in Canada, you can find so many different languages spoken other than English. So that might be a little bit of a, I don't really need to learn to speak English in Vancouver if I don't want to. However, if you go to where I'm from in Tatamagouche, Nova Scotia, where English is the only language spoken, it's going to force you and encourage you to learn it quicker. That's what I'm experiencing now.
And it's more rewarding because whenever you speak Chinese, even just 1 or 2 sentences, 1 or 2 words, people would encourage you and they would also continue to speak Chinese to you here in China. Yes, we're talking about Chinese here in Beijing. The situation is like this. And I was wondering, because you've had this really long living in Korea life experience already, and do you recognize certain characters in Chinese? Because actually we know in Japan as well as in Korea, South Korea, you would see certain Chinese characters being used in Korean or in Japanese as well.
Yeah, that's right. And you'll see them in the newspaper in Korea. You'll see a lot of Korean characters, and then all of a sudden a Chinese character will be there. And Koreans know what that means. And my Korean never got to the ability where I was reading the newspaper on a daily basis, so I never really picked up anything. The only real Chinese character that I know is the one that represents people. And that's the kind of the 2 strokes, one down and to the left and one down and to the right. And that means people.
That means human being, people, person. Yes.
Then there's another one that I've seen around Beijing a lot. I saw it on the sign. It's the name of a local beer company, so I won't say that. But I've seen this symbol on license plates a lot as well, this character. And I know that
I'm curious because
it's Jing, right?
It is Jing. It's the Jing of Beijing.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you're thinking about Beijing, then Bei in itself means the north. And Jing actually can be understood as capital. The character itself has evolved for quite a long time, and it's not the original look, but for the original character Jing, actually it basically means someone standing at a high place or someone on a peak. And because this someone is higher, or this place is higher than all the other places should be following the order of this tall place, of this high place.
The capital.
So, the capital. So that's the meaning of it. But I was curious about, what does the character Jing look like to you?
It looks like a squid.
A what?
A squid wearing a hat. And this is called word association. And you can use this tool to help remember things. You use your own language to try to remember something in another language. I'll give you an example. In Korean, call me is spider. Now, call me sounds in English like call me.
Call me.
So to remember that
Call me,
vocabulary, I imagine in my mind a spider using the telephone. So I remember that call me means spider. In Chinese, with this character Jing, well, to me, it looks like a squid wearing a hat. This is the picture association, and I don't know why that helps me remember, but I know that that's Jing. Now, do I know what that means? Well, now I do because you explained it to me, but before, I just knew it as the squid wearing a hat. And I don't mean to be disrespectful at all, by the way.
Of course.
Yeah, it's just the image that I saw when I looked at that picture.
Well, on one hand, I am actually happy about you having the ability to associate the character with a picture or a certain kind of meaning in your head, because actually Chinese characters are pictographic. They originated actually from a certain picture that ancient Chinese people are drawing. And after a while, they feel like, we can use this little picture to symbolize this meaning. And after a while, you standardize that, you change the circles into perhaps a square, so it's easy to write. You change the little squirrely strokes into relatively standardized, a horizontal line or vertical line or different strokes like that, so it's easier to remember and easier to actually promote. More people would be able to learn the characters, and that's how it is done today. Nowadays, if you see Chinese characters, they're totally standardized, and unless you're reading the handwriting of a very sophisticated good doctor, which I do not know why, but I think doctors write in their own ways in different languages.
Oh, that's interesting.
You can never recognize the prescription of a doctor no matter which language you use.
That's an interesting thing to say, because in the West, that's what people say too. Doctors
Right?
have the worst handwriting of all.
Anyways, unless it's the prescription from a doctor, you would be able to understand other people's writing. But that's not it's a little off point for today's episode. Today, I'd like to introduce the idea of Chinese characters. And hopefully after today's episode, you would at least have faith in learning these, picture-looking thousands of little pictures that you have to remember to learn this language. A little heads up, it's not like that. It's not as complicated as that.
Good news.
Yes, so for those of you who are listening, if you're interested in Chinese culture and you want to get a grip on the Chinese language, then this is the show for you. Stick with us for 30 minutes and you soon see the rewards. And for more fun Chinese learning, follow our Facebook page, Learn Chinese, to watch many fun videos and live streams. But now, let's provide you with some free Chinese for takeaway. Since we are in the stage of providing free Chinese for takeaway, what is the Chinese that you would like to take away before we dive into the discussion about Chinese characters? Any expression you'd like to learn today?
Do you have or do you not have? And I've learned from getting tips from people when I'm out and about, for example, at a restaurant, and I want to ask, I love ice. I love ice water. I love ice coffee. I love ice. So I'm always asking for ice. Now, I know ice is bing. So in a restaurant, when I'm asking for water, instead of saying like, give me ice water, I would like to know, like, do you have ice or do you not? And I think this kind of question is good because when I've gone to the grocery store as well and I'm looking for something, I was looking for a frying pan in a shop and I wanted to know, do you have it or do you not have it? So this is what my question for you today. Do you have or do you not have? How do I say this in Chinese?
It's actually incredibly easy because have or do not have in Chinese would be 有.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, 有.
有. And we know that, again, Chinese is a high context language, so you can omit the 你 if you want, but definitely if you're asking do you have, the you part is 你. Now we know 你有 would be you have. And in previous episodes, we talked about adding a ma at the end of the sentence to showcase that this is a yes or no question. So if the yes or no question is whether or not you have it, it can actually be you have it 吗? Right?
Yeah.
So 你有冰 is the ice 吗?
你有冰吗?
Basically that. You have ice, yes or no.
你有冰吗?
And here 你 can even be omitted. You can just say 有冰吗?
有冰吗?有冰吗? Okay, yeah.
Careful there.
I learned before, the you or I in Chinese can often be left out, right? In English, we say it all the time. I, you, I, me, you. We say it all the time. But in Chinese, you don't necessarily need to use it all the time.
If you're talking to someone and you're lifting out the I or you, then you're definitely talking about the people on site.
Okay, so 有冰吗? And just if I want to keep that structure, 有吗 means do you have? And between 有 and 吗, I put the word that I want to know.
Yes.
If they have it or not.
Yes.
So I know umbrella is 伞. 伞. So 有伞吗 is do you have an umbrella?
Exactly.
Now, if I'm in a shop, in English, I guess we would say, or we can say, sell. But do I need to use the word sell in Chinese if I'm in a place that sells stuff?
You do not have to.
So I could just ask, do you have? Yeah,
Do
I
you
guess
have?
that's the same in English too. Yeah, do you have an umbrella? Do you sell umbrellas? Same thing. Okay, good to know. 有 ma, and put the word in between 有 and ma.
Yes. The only risk here is this is a really short sentence, meaning that tone would matter here. And 冰, first tone, means ice. 病, fourth tone, means ill.
Oh.
Physical ill or mental illness.
Oh, no.
So if you say 有病吗, if
do you have
can,
an illness?
or is there anything wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me? Are you mentally ill?
Oh, no.
I know. It's going to be hard.
So if a server comes to the table and I can say yo, and I can say bing, and I can say ma, if I say bing with the wrong tone, I'm going to be asking them, hi, what's wrong with you?
Exactly.
Oh, dear.
That's why the moment I was sharing this sentence with you, I was like, I have to tell you this just in case.
It's a good thing to know. So can you give me the proper tone for bing, please?
有病吗?
Yo, bing ma.
That's good. And I would recommend you, at least for the first couple of tries, hold your glasses and say, 有病吗?
And point it at it.
Yeah, it helps a little
Yo,
bit.
bing ma.
And this is precisely the reason that I recommend whoever's learning Chinese for a relatively longer period of time, who has already tried the pinyin to, look up a character in the dictionary, or at least can pronounce most of the Chinese sounds in the Chinese language, to at least learn a little bit of the character, because it will significantly help you to remember word combinations, since there are really just limited sounds in the Chinese language, and characters are basically the writing system, the written language here.
As a response, I've heard this a lot. Male.
They don't have it.
Meaning they don't have it. So if you're out traveling around in China and you ask someone, do you have this? 有 ma, and they say 没有. That they're telling you, no, they don't have it.
No, they don't have it. And since you're already talking about 没有, you already know how to say 没有, which means no. Another way of asking whether or not they have it would be 有没有. So you can say 有没有冰. So have, not have, 冰.
有没有. Now this is really useful because that's easy, right? 有没有. And if you have a picture on your phone, if you don't know the vocabulary, for example, of milk, I don't know, or eggs or something, and then you go to the store, before you go in, just have the picture of the thing you're looking for, like a lamp or something. You can say, 有没有.
Yes.
Do you have this or do you not? If they say 没有, then it means no, they don't have it. If they say something else, then that's good news. It means they have it.
Yeah, and they're trying to lead you the way and tell you where it is.
有没有.
有没有.
And then being in that example, bing would come at the end, not at the beginning. You would not say bing, 有没有?
I think if it comes at the end, it will be more standardized, proper Chinese. But if you put it at the very beginning, people will still understand you.
Okay, got it.
It makes sense, totally. And the thing is, with this in mind, actually the structure of the positive form of the verb and then the negative form of the verb plus the noun, this sentence structure actually is the sentence structure to ask whether or not you've done something. So if I say 吃饭, that's eating, eat meal, right? If I say 吃没吃饭, have you eaten yet? Do you want to join me and let's have a bite? So this is a simple structure that you can use not only with 有没有, have or have not.
Not only with ice.
Not only with ice either.
Got it.
So yes, quite straightforward in certain occasions. So now you know how to ask about ice, and please use the right tone.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't offend anybody.
Bing, bing.
Yeah, perfect.
It sounds like ringing a bell, right?
A little bit.
And by the way, if you want a little word association tip if you happen to be an English speaker, mayo sounds like mayonnaise. So just remember, you're asking if they have mayonnaise.
I've never thought about it that way.
Yo mayo. Do you have mayonnaise or do you not have mayonnaise? Just use that as the word association tip.
It can help you remember things, but hopefully my tip would help you remember how to write the Chinese character the right way.
Yeah, don't learn Chinese from me just yet. Okay, so I think yo mayo and just have the picture of the mayonnaise. Okay, yes. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Keep going.
No worries, because there are certain words in Chinese that are actually introduced from the outside world. And for example, we talked about Canada, 加拿大, the other time. And there's also, for example, chocolate. Chocolate in Chinese would be 巧克力. So it's the transliteration of the original word. And now if you say 巧克力, it's proper Chinese, definitely proper Chinese already. So it's easier to remember in those cases. But the one that I want to explain was actually the Chinese character 有. The Chinese character 有, especially the original, the very first edition of the character, with the outer part of it looks like a hand, and the upper and a little bit inner part of it is a 月, is a moon, but it suggests meat.
Okay.
So it's having meat in your hand. So if you have it, you have it. And
meat meaning like let's meet at 8 p.m.
No.
meat like a steak?
Steak, something we can eat. So you can kind of imagine ancient Chinese people hunting and harvesting, and if they have meat in their hand, they would feel that they're very wealthy. They have things. So that character means have.
Like something in your hand.
Yes, then you have. If the something is not in your hand, you don't have.
I see.
Yes.
That's really interesting to know.
It is actually really interesting, and that is the thing about Chinese characters. When it comes to Chinese characters, we talk about there are more than around 50,000 Chinese characters out there. And in order to, for example, read newspapers here in China, you have to remember most of the 2,000 or 3,000 ones. It sounds intimidating if they are basically pictures to you. Yet, if we are talking about Chinese, actually learning Chinese characters, they are a little bit like building blocks. We call them radicals, 偏旁部首. So you can see that for certain characters, it looks like you are putting together two characters side by side. Sometimes it looks like you're putting two Chinese characters together, one at the top, one at the bottom. Sometimes it's even more complicated than that. You have multiple building blocks or Lego components put together. But essentially, it's the 200 to 300 basic Chinese character components that are your starting point. If you remember the first 300 ones, it definitely gets easier. For example, we talk about 冰, ice, having ice. Actually, the left side, which is the left character component in the character 冰, is two dots, suggesting it's related to water. And the right side is literally the water itself. So the Chinese character for water, 水, and put together it's 冰. So It's like if you recognize 水, if you recognize water, you don't find being unfamiliar, that unfamiliar. You would know it has something to do with water.
And then you're saying that because the Chinese characters are like building blocks, those two dots that represent Bing, that represent ice, if you see those two dots somewhere else,
it has something to do with water.
It has something to do with water. Now, what it has to do with water would be different because those two dots will be attached to a different character, which will change the meaning. But I see your point now about Lego blocks, about building blocks. The challenge for a new learner of Chinese is that when you look at a complicated character, you can see the different pieces, right, put together. But for someone who doesn't speak Chinese or doesn't know the characters, you don't know where one part of the block ends and where the first part of the other block begins. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
When I say that? Yeah.
And that is why I highly recommend those of you who are dedicated to learn the Chinese language to start with the first 200, 300 components. That would give you a very solid foundation. You would recognize the parts because they're just really not that many.
Yeah.
And even better for Chinese speakers and Chinese learners is that we talked about you cannot really pronounce a Chinese character by looking at the Chinese character because it's a pictographic language. Yet, actually, certain building blocks in the character would give you a hint of the pronunciation of that character.
It would also give you a hint to the meaning of the character too.
Exactly.
Would it not?
It will. For example, the Chinese character for feeling is 情, 感情 would be feeling. 爱情 is love. 亲情 is family love. So love for your family members. And 友情 is friendship. So love for your friends. See, the logic goes beyond just characters. Actually, the logic goes to character building words. And words coming together as a phrase. It goes on beyond that. It's the same logic dominating the Chinese language altogether.
Yeah, and I get what you mean. Those first 200 to 300, I forget what you said, but those first couple of hundred, that's your foundation.
That's your foundation.
Yeah.
And actually what I was trying to say here with the example of feeling 情, 感情, is that if you take a look at the Chinese character, the left side of it is a 竖心旁. We call it 竖心旁 because the left side is kind of like a variation of the Chinese character for heart. And with that, it has something to do with your emotion. So 情 has something to do with your emotion, with your heart. And you see the heart side, you kind of know, already know, so this character has something to do with feelings, with my heart. And the right side, the right component of the Chinese character 情 is pronounced 青. It means green. The meaning of it is not important, but you see the resemblance of the pronunciation 青 and 情, right? So this part suggests the pronunciation of the character. So if you learn the first several hundred building blocks, you kind of already would have an idea about, this character, I do not know this character, but it might pronounce this way. It might have something to do with its meaning. So actually, the Chinese characters suggest a lot of things with its building blocks, with its radicals.
Yeah, and that's a great tip. Learn those first couple of hundred, and that'll probably take a while, but you don't have to do that all in one day, right? You can learn them while you're learning other vocabulary, while you're learning other expressions, maybe some grammar structures, like, for example, 有 ma, right? You can learn that stuff separately, all the while continuing to build your character base.
Definitely. And the funny thing is, it's a process, a learning process for native Chinese speakers as well. For myself, as a kid, for example, when I see the 情, the emotion character, 情感, emotion, I know that. And then later on, maybe I learn about 清澈, clear water. And I realize, it's the same right component, the right side, the right radical of the same character of 清, and then the left part is a water sign. It's a 3-dot water sign, suggesting we're talking about the water is very clear, and it's pronounced 清. And another one might be 请, it's like please. It's again, same right side, different left side. It's easier. And as a kid, for example, the Chinese character for 尖, which means sharp, has the upper side of it. The upper component means small, 小, and the lower component is 大. So you put something very small on something gradually getting bigger, then you're talking about a sharp object, right?
Okay, yeah, like a handle, like a knife handle type of kind of idea.
Idea is like it's very, very small at the one front and gradually it gets bigger.
From the other end, not the handle end, from the tip of the sharp thing.
Sharp. It's 尖, sharp.
Yeah, like an arrow's tip, and then it gets wider and bigger as it goes. Yeah,
it
I
makes
understand.
a lot of sense, right? And what's more interesting, gradually, when you're learning the language, most recently, I know that the Chinese character for 存在, existence. So 存在 would be a word, and it is composed with these two characters, 存 and 在. And in the 存 part, you get to see a character component of 子, which suggests time in ancient Chinese. And 在, the same area of the character, you can see a Chinese character 土, which is land or area, space. So put together, we're talking about time and space forming a certain existence.
This is the character for quantum physics.
What I'm trying to say here is I didn't used to realize how philosophical it can actually be because existence 存在, this is a very common Chinese word. It can be used in modern Chinese in a much less philosophical kind of way. Yet, after knowing the origin of it, you started to realize how meaningful it originally was. And that's the learning process for me as well, a supposed to be sophisticated Chinese speaker.
So you, even though you're a native Chinese speaker, you've been speaking Chinese for a long time, you've been studying
My entire
characters
life,
for a long time, but you're still improving your Chinese, is what you're saying.
This is what I'm saying.
And this is true for all Chinese people.
Yes.
Wow.
And the thing is, if you're learning Chinese and you already know that Chinese is a pictographic language, you know each and every Chinese character has a originating story. And of course, you already know that maybe perhaps not every Chinese character is a picture in itself. They might be two pictures put together. And you ask a Chinese native speaker, what is the story behind this character?
They might not know.
They might not know.
And that's a natural thing. That's true for English, too. That's true for any language, I think. Not all people know the backstory of every single word in their language, right? Those are for the experts to know. Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting point, though. One more question. So you are continuing to
improve my Chinese.
But are you telling me that every Chinese citizen throughout their life continues to improve their Chinese? I'm guessing some people just stop, don't they?
Yeah, as long as you want to, you can learn something new from the Chinese characters or sayings. Yes. But still, I think it's something very interesting, and it improves our understanding about not only the language itself, but also the culture. Also, how come Chinese people are expressing things this way, and the logic behind the expression suggests the way we understand how we see the world and how we see people-to-people exchanges, how we see friendship. It's something very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it's also another level, right? We know that when you learn a language, a really helpful thing to know is the culture as well, and the people as well, and using the language with the people who speak the language. Then you're going to learn all of that extra information. But in the very beginning, I guess, don't worry about that. That'll come later with experience. In the beginning, just try to learn how to order ice without insulting anyone.
That would be a good start.
That's lesson number 1.
It would be a good start. And in the meantime, hopefully today's episode would help you get much less intimidated by the idea of learning Chinese characters. They're not that hard, and they're not entirely pictures. And even if they're pictures, you'd only have to learn couple of hundreds of pictures, and then when you put them together, you are in the door of the treasure cave of Chinese culture already. And that brings us to the end of today's Takeaway Chinese. I'm Nian Honglin with Steve Hatherley here in the studio. For more episodes of the show, you can visit our website at radio.cgtn.com and go to the column podcast. You can also listen to the show and read the scripts there. Find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Just search for Takeaway Chinese. Don't forget to leave your questions, comments, and ratings. 感谢收听，我们下次再见。
有病吗？拜拜。